Yeah, welcome. This is Anthony Mugabira, and this is my interview. My candidate number is ABC 01044, and I'll be creating a web API that uses Jot. To have two endpoints. One is accepting username and password and returns a Jot, and the other one is the admin. It's a get that get users that is a protected route accessible only to admin users. So we shall be creating the .NET Core Web API with those following requirements. And we shall also be using the Interframework Core to model users with the roles. Yeah. So from there, then we can create our project. We shall start by creating a new project. Sometimes it takes a while. So we choose the ASP.NET Core Web API. We choose the project name. So let me put Secure Jot API. Next. Then we shall be using .NET Core, .NET 8. We shall allow Open API. We shall have use controllers. We didn't allow Docker or container support because to bring us unnecessary issues with overworking the laptop, and it may take so much time to load when you're debugging. But that's okay. So we are now waiting for the project to be created. Sometimes it takes a while, but this should be okay. Okay, so now let's wait and see. This is unnecessary. So we go to our project. Let me first check if the Copilot is on so that we disable it, but good enough it's disabled. So let's add some dependencies that we shall need to have. And these dependencies are required for making sure that we have the necessary dependencies or the necessary libraries as we will go on writing and programming this application. We'll go through the NuGet packages, and then we need to add some. We shall need NuGet packages like Interframework Core, .SQLite, so that's my preference for the DB. Then the technical tools, we shall need the GeoTW barrier, and we shall also need the bcrypt for password hashing. Yeah, but let's first continue because it was not loading as expected. So let's first add our models that do not depend on that. So let me create I've created the folder of models, and inside it I will need to create a new class users. So let me create that class. So add a class. So this class will be full of getters and setters. Let's add public int ID, so for the ID for the user. These are getters and setters. My laptop is quite being slow. I'll need to clear up some stuff to make it run faster. So I'll need to add the username, which is a string. Also need to add the password hash, which is also going to be a string. Public string password hash. We also need to add the role. So the role is going to be either user or admin. Ideally, the best practice would be making this as an enum, but for the interest of being fast, we shall not be creating multiple classes or enums. So I'll just need to do that here as a string, but it would be an enum. Then refresh token, which is a string, that the refresh token that we shall be giving out. And then we shall have the date time for the refresh token expiry. So let us try again the NuGet packages and see if we can add them. The previous attempt was very slow, so let's see. Like I said before, we need to add into framework core. I need to choose the earlier versions for stability. Sometimes if I'll use 8.20.20 so that we have stability here. Otherwise, sometimes if you may add libraries, dependencies that are not compatible, and we could run into issues. We also need the SQL JW barrier. It's already here. Let me add it. Still, for consistency, I would add that. It's always better to work with the latest, but sometimes there's compatibility issues. So let me see if I can find the SQLite one. Yeah, there it is. So that would allow us to work with SQLite in our Interframework core. You can choose whatever you want in memory or whatsoever, but me, I love this for this project, and I'll be adding that. So there is something called bcrypt for password hashing. This, so I would add this also. The latest version is 4. So more or less we have most of the dependencies that we need. So we can go on to create the DB context. Let me create a new folder called data where I'll be adding my DB context. And this is a very key for defining my database. So I'm going to create this class app db context. So this will inherit the db context. So let's define our users, the db set users, public db set user fix this so that we can be importing it from the correct places. So it should be a get and set also, the property of that type. So we need to create a constructor that takes in the db context options. Options base options. Okay, so we need to override the on model creating method, which is a protected method. Shall have it as protected, so that we can feed some data that we shall be using for testing. It's very important that we have some data already that we need to use for testing. So on this we shall be using the on model creating. So when you're creating the model, we shall be seeding the data also. So model builder model builder.entity dot has data. So inside this we shall define two excuse me, two new rows in our database, the database table called user. One is ID1, username we shall set as admin. I will change it to admin lowercase so that we can differentiate it from the role. And password hash, let us use our encryption method so that we can encrypt it. Decrypt, dot net dot decrypt dot hash password. Then we add our password. I will call it admin pass. We can have other, it's a production project or production code, we can have database restrictions and make sure that it's a strong password, not such easy one. So the role, we can set it to be admin. All right. Let's add another one. New user ID equal to username user password hash like before, bcrypt.net.bcrypt.hash password. So I would give it randomly user pass. Then also we need to have a role which is user. So these are the two rows that we've added to our database. Just terminate here so that we can clear these errors that we can see. And so far this is now our DB context class. Essentially that is done. So we need to be adding this to our programs class or program class. So we need to add the DB context and configure it in the programs class. So we need to add the services. So builder that has already been defined. This is done automatically when you're creating the project. So we can always build on it. So we have added the DB app context, the DB context. So the options and the data source, let me set them. Options, we shall need to be using SQLite. Or SQLite. The data source, I would choose app.db. Let me add this. So we already have the rest, the controllers. I think we are set to continue. The Swagger gen is already there. Add endpoints is already there. So our API model really works. So we can always add the data on create scope, so using let me do this, app.services dot create scope. So it has defined our variables, var_db from scope.serviceprovider.getRequiredService. So the required service we shall be taking in the app_db context. And then we ensure that the DB is created. We shall not be using migrate, ensure DB created. So this creates the DB and seeds the data. That's the most important thing that we need to do. Okay, so this we are done. So the next bit is let us configure our JOT authentication and authorization from the program class, so that we can continue from there. So these configurations will help us have the JOT set. So that's a builder.services.add authentication. And we set JBarrier defaults dot authentication scheme dot add JWT barrier. So I shall be setting the options inside here, which we shall be setting to be the token validation parameters. So option is the token validation parameters is equal to new token validation parameters, and these we shall set to be token validation parameters. So let's set them in here. So validate issuer, setting it to true. Validate audience, also setting it to true. Signing key, so validate issuer signing key. Okay, let me start with lifetime. Signing key, so set to true. Then we can set our valid issuer. So let me just add in my URL, random URL, http www.mugavira.com, assuming this is a valid one. Then we shall also set our audience. So let me set the audience to be probably I would say my app. App.com, then issuer signing key. So this should be a symmetric security key that is encoded. So let me generate my key first so that I can copy it. OpenSSH so that I can use OpenSSH to generate this key of mine. Let me go to the terminal and try to do this again. The 32 character length. So let me copy this. Okay. Have it in clip. Okay. So this is my secure secret key, but it needs to be a symmetric security key which must be encoded. New symmetric security key. So encoding. So we shall be using the encoding of UTF-8. Let me see options I have. Yes, it's here. UTF-8 dot get bytes. So we need the bytes, and then we pass our string that we've generated using OpenSSH before. There are many ways we could generate this, but I've chosen this here. Okay, so this adds that authentication. So we need to add the authorization also. So we say builder.services dot add authorization. So authorization would help us deal with the roles. Options. So we shall be adding the options with policy, and the policy being admin only. So ideally, some of, like for instance, the ones defined above, the token validation parameters, we would have set them inside the different document, the JSON document, and set JW2 settings and have them there instead of having them hard coded inside here. But for the interest of time, you can continue as it is. But the best policy, the best case scenario would be defining them in the other document, in the other file, the JSON file, so that here we only reference them, but it is as it is. So continue. Required role is admin. So let me check if we have used authentication. We have it already. Authorization, we have it, so you can say use authentication. We add it. Yes. So from here, now that we have our program set, we can start with the controllers. we start creating our controllers. Let me delete this one that was created for me on creating the project. It's not necessary for us. Just remove it and create our own new controller. So add a new controller. We shall be calling set by an empty one. Let's call it auth controller. And this will extend the controller base. Let's add API controller annotations and also give it the route as defined in the question. Should be the route of auth. Yeah, so that is good enough. We have some read-only properties that I think I need to start with. We need to have our db and config. Configuration is set. So essentially, in the best practice would be having many of these requests done in a service, so that we controllers would not be managing this. But for interest of time and constraints of time, I chose not to have services or a folder for services, but have this in controller itself. But the best practice would be having a separate folder for services where many of these business logic requests and code is. So I've already defined our DB. So let me add our constructor. The constructor has two parameters, the appdb context and also the I configuration. So from here, I'll need to create my first endpoint, which will return the iActionable result. I'm calling to login, and it will get from body, it will get the login request. Login request. So there's a login request that's already defined, but we shall need to write our own that uses our own values, our own variables or parameters, instead of these that are inbuilt with the user class of ASP.NET Core. So let me add HTTP post, because this is a post, and have login as the route. Yes, so start by requesting the user from the DB, user whose username we are getting from the request, we get the request from the body, so single or default. Define our request, username is equal to request dot username. Yeah, in any case, we shall define our own login requests later at the end of this, so that these errors, you can ignore them for now. They will be sorted later. So I'll need to compare if this user is null or the password is, because the idea is if the user is null, then this is not known, but let me do it altogether null, or the password is not the same, you can't verify the password. So bcrypt dot bcrypt dot verify. So I will be verifying this password on request with the hash that we have in the database. Okay. So if this is true, then we return unauthorized. So if the user is not known or the password is not the same, can't be verified, then invalid credentials, valid user. Okay, so now that we've returned this, so if the user is not invalid, then we have to generate our tokens, our refresh token, and also, yeah, details of what we need to give back. So I'll be having my let me create this method. I'll need to create it here after, so don't mind. So this other variable, refresh token, is equal to generate refresh token. So we set user dot refresh token. We shall set it to the refresh token that we've generated above, and then we set the user refresh token expiry. Let's give it date time. I would love to have set it to 7 days, so that the refresh token could only expire in 7 days. So it has to use UTC time, because if you're in different time zones, then you can have consistency. So add days, not add simply, but add days, and put 7. And then we need to save these changes to the DB, so that these new changes are stored in the DB. So we need to save this in the DB. And then finally return OK with the access token. So essentially returning the JWT. There's a refresh token. Is equal to the refresh token. So let me capitalize the first one. Okay. Right, so let me do my methods. These should be private. So generate access token that takes in the user. So var claims is equal to new so we need to set the claims let me add two claims, one the name and another one with the role. So type name and then user.username. The next one is going to be the role and user role. User.role. Yes, so we also need the key. After the claims, we shall also need the key. Which is the same key that we defined in our programs file. So I'll use the same key. We can do the refactoring hereafter so that we can be sure of using the solid principles. But let me, for the interest of time, let me just implement this here. Paste it. So this is our code. Like I've said, we could go to the app settings and then create the JWT and then add them there. But for the interest of time, here we are. I will be defining also the credentials. So var credentials. These are new signing credentials. So to take in the key that we've generated above and also our signing algorithm, our security algorithm. Let's use this SHA-256. There are many alternatives that someone could use, but I find this very secure and very consistent with what we are trying to achieve here. So the token, JWT token, can generate it here now using the security token, JWT security token. So we set our issuer, don't see the option, and set it, issuer, so like I've said, these should have been defined previously. So audience, I've already set them in the programs file, programs class. So claims, we shall need to use these claims that we have defined above. Expires, so we set it to expire in the access token expires in 15 minutes. So we set the time and add 15 minutes, add minutes, 15, and then the signing credentials, we use those that we defined above. Right, so then we need to return our new JWT security token handler. Security handler. Yes, then we write the token and we write our token. So we are remaining with two errors that we need to define already. So generate refresh token. It should be a string, generate refresh token. Private string, generate refresh token. So this should be the random number. Oh, I made a mistake here, so let me fix it so that the method signature is going to be the same. Okay, so just have a random number, which is 32 of 32 byte, new byte 32. So using var nrg system dot security dot cryptography dot random number generate and dot create. So nrg dot get bytes from the random number that we have generated above. and we shall return this. Now I shall return it, but after converting it to the base64 string, to convert dot to base64 string random number. Okay, yeah, so this then we need to create our login request class. So essentially we could have it in our models, but let me put it here. But on refactoring, I would essentially add it to the, move it to the models folder so that we can have all our models in the same place. This is a different class, login request, and it has two public string username so getters and setters, and also public string password. It's already being suggested here. So yes, so that defines our first endpoint. So let me try to run it and we see if we have made some errors already or not. It's building, build and run, and then we see we have something. If our Swagger, our Open API is bringing something already. It's taking longer than expected. But it's failing because invalid. The entity user cannot be added because of value no value was provided for the required property token, refresh token. Okay. Continue and we see. I'm able to convert. So let me use HTTPS and we see. HTTPS. Let me try again here. So it's failing for the same reason, and I think it's because we are not setting these parameters in the user, these properties in the user that we didn't set to nullable. So let me set everything to nullable so that we can test comfortably, because they are not being set when we are seeding the data in the DB. They're not already being set, but here they're not nullable. So let me set them to nullable. And yeah, I'm pretty sure this would make it work. Okay. So we can add another one for refreshing the token. So iActionable refresh. So this is another endpoint that we are creating to be able to refresh the token. So it's a refresh request that we shall also define later, like we defined the login request. So let's add post. Let's make it a post endpoint with a refresh road. Okay. So for our principal, so we shall also define we shall get principals from the expired token. So let's get principal, let's create our own method here that we shall define later. Get principal from expired token, and this should take the request is access token. Okay, so if the principal is null, shall be defining these later, both the method we are using and also the refresh. So if the principal is null, then we will definitely return a bad request, invalid access token. So we can't access, we can't refresh it if it's an invalid access token. So else, if it's not null, then let's get the username, which is from the principal identity name. Dot identity dot name, and also checking the DB for the user with this name. So let's check in the DB users dot single or default dot username is equal to the username that we are getting from the access token from the request, and also the refresh token in the DB should be equal to the request dot refresh token Yeah, but also more importantly, we need to have the refresh token being set to expire more than now. So the expiry date should be greater than now, so that we don't refresh a token that's already expired. So it doesn't make sense to refresh a token that's already expired. So it should be greater than now. So that time dot UTC now. Like I've said before, we need to have consistent time management. So UTC is better to manage time across different time zones. So if the user is null, then I think we shall return a bad request in this case, because it's an invalid refresh token. So for some reason it's invalid. Either it's expired, or the username is not consistent, it's not known, or the refresh token is not known for that same user. So invalid access token. And so that's one way we are looking at it. So otherwise, we need to refresh it by generating our new access token. We shall generate our new access token. We also generate our new refresh token, and also reset the expiry to the future again, so that our token is refreshed and set for the future 7 days. Yeah, so let me do this here. Okay, so set also the refresh token expiry, like I've said before, put it in 7 days. But add days. So return OK. So we shall return this new token that has been refreshed for this particular user. So access token is equal to new new access token, and refresh token should also be new. Refresh token. Yes, so far that is good. So our endpoint is finished. So now we need to implement our method, that method, the get principal from expired token which returns, so it's a method that returns the claims principal. So private claims principal method, so it takes in a string token. So it does have the token validation parameters. Set validate audience to false. Okay, so after setting the valid audience to false, so validate issuer false, then validate, we need also to validate the signing key, but this we should set it to true. True, and also generate our issuer signing key. So like I've said before, it would be very important to have this in the JSON, the settings JSON, but then here we are, we shall continue as it is, but like software is always maintained, we can always refactor to use the solid principles and have these defined in one place so that we don't have to have them all over. Yeah, but just to make sure that we get the concept right and this working, I'll just paste it there. Okay, so we can also set the clock skew timestamp 0, and also validate live. So we need to allow the expired token is to refresh. So we set it to false. The validate lifetime, set it to false, so that we can allow the expired token is for refresh. Otherwise, if I set it to true, then the expired tokens would not be allowed to refresh. So okay, so it's not supposed to be validated, it's supposed to be validate. Let's see, let's continue. So we need to var token handler is equal to new city token handler. So we set our saturated token. Let's go back and then saturated token. var principal is equal to token handler dot validate token. So we add our token, then we add our token validation parameters as we set above. Also add the output of this method should be the security token. Okay. So this method outputs for us the security token. So we set our JWT security token. Let us first return our principal. Okay. So var security token is equal to security token as GEOT security token of type security token. Okay. So if the security token is null or it does not equal to the one that we expect, so if it's null or the just token is not, so we say not. JWT security token my keyboard sometimes gets stuck and disturbs me, so it freezes sometimes. Okay, it's responding. Dot header dot lg dot equals shoot algorithms dot the one that I chose previously, 256 Hamakshot 256, and then we compare it with this using string comparison, but we are ignoring the case. Ignore case. So if it's null, or if the security token is null or it can't be compared, it fails the comparison, then we shall return null. Yeah. So this else we shall return the principal that we get from the above manipulation. So the next bit, the refresh. Okay, so identity, not identity. So I think this tries to fix it. Why is it not changing? Let me see. Sometimes my IDE takes long to respond. Okay, so now mint string want the identity. Okay, so I need to create another class for the refresh request. Public class refresh request. So this has a public string access token, and a public string refresh token. Okay, so we have finished our first endpoint. So we shall need to create the second endpoint. Let's define our controller. It should be a different controller. So it should be the admin controller. Okay, so like before, this controller should be of type controller base. Let me come back. Let me come back. My battery is going down, so I'll get a charger and plug it in. Then when I'll be back, we shall be able to continue. A minute. My phone battery is not. My camera that I use. My camera is on the phone. The one I use for being able to see this. Okay. So let me add this. My camera is not responding. I don't know. Oh, it's not giving the expected. Quite slow and not responding occasionally. But we're okay. So we need to add API controller. Okay. API controller. Laptop has become very slow. I don't know if it's responding or not. Let me wait for a minute, see if it can respond. The camera will respond, or camera has gone off completely. Well, let me continue with the talking. Okay, let me continue. Yeah. camera is not responding, it's not being projected. So like previous time, my laptop camera died, so I use an app that allows me to project the phone camera onto the laptop so that I can use it as a webcam, but this has not responded. But let me continue. So let me set the route to admin, as which was part of the question, and admin and authorize, and add the authorize annotation. So the policy should only allow admin only. Okay, so let's start by implementing our read-only app DB context property. It's a private property. Private read-only app DB context. So we call it DB. So we shall have our constructor. It's already been suggested, a constructor. Then we add our app DB context, DB. So we set our DB context be equal to this DB context, the private one to be the same one as the parameter from the constructor. Well, okay, so now let's create our endpoint. It's a public, so it's because it will be a sync task. It's a full topic because we need to know await async and not threading. So because we are getting many users and going to the DB, then it's better we do this. Okay, so it returns a task actionable result. So be a get, so HTTP get annotation, we need to add that. HTTP get users. Okay, so we come back to the body of the method and try to implement it. So var users is equal to, shall set from using await. DB, oh, no, it's await. Okay, our DB dot users so let's select from the database it's not supposed to be new user, it's supposed to be just a new keyword. once. Select also the username and the role. To list the sync. So return this, okay. Return this list. Okay, so now I think we finished. Let's test again and we see. It's taking some time for us to run it, but let's run and we see what happens. Okay, so it's loading. Our Open API is loading. Yeah, so we have the admin, users, the get. So let us try it and we see. Yeah, so let's see. See? Okay, it's returning an authorized user because as expected, it allows admin, that's good. So the login, let's try out how it would work out. Let's add admin, the one that we've seeded, admin pass. Let us execute and we see. Yeah, we have our token. So far, that's very good. This is very good. Thank you so much. So this explains and tests our code that we've been able to develop. There's a lot of more we could do, especially to do with refactoring the code and making sure some of these files are put in here, and yeah, creating the services instead of putting most of the code in the controller. We have it in the services, but all those are things that you can be done in refactoring. Those are things that you already know. So this has been making sure that we achieve this in the quickest time possible, and that's how we have been able to come up with this. All right, I'm sorry my camera went off and we weren't able to finish, but yeah, so let me copy and paste some of the things here. Essentially, we should have one place where they are defined and they can be only used from the app settings. Yeah, but as proof of concept, this has worked. It has been able to work, and yeah, we're happy to have this. So thank you so much. This is Anthony Mugabira. My candidate ID has been defined at the beginning. It's ABC 01044. So I'm trying to save my file so that we can have it shared. Let me just do like this. Hopefully it will it will be saved. Alright.